Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Glam Reaper Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Muldowney, aka the Glam Reaper herself. On today's episode, we are talking to Kari the Mortician, as she is known online. We are talking all things social media, how she got started, how she's doing super well. We're talking about the ups and downs of social media in the funeral biz, and it's a really good episode. So check it out. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glam Reaper Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Muldowney, and on today's episode, I am joined by a mortician who I follow on Instagram, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we can't wait to hear more from. Hello, and welcome.
Hello, I am Kari the Mortician on YouTube, Instagram. Started the TikTok thing, but feeling super old trying to do it, but that's okay. I'm still there, and on Facebook, and yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
That's great. And so that's how I actually came to find you, Kari. And I find your content, it's honest, it's open. I mean, I don't know what age you are. I feel like we're probably of similar age. So I hear you on the TikTok buzz. I actually got into TikTok a tiny bit myself during COVID. I think it was just boredom. Like, I think probably a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I don't use it for work because for what I do, it's kind of tricky, similar. That's why I do want to touch on that. It's tricky to do it because I'm so into my clients' privacy and stuff. And what I do is, I can't show people sort of in behind scenes of a funeral home because I'm not a funeral director. I don't work at a funeral home. And to me, that they're also my client's funeral home. So that would be their privacy and stuff. But what I love is that there's so many, interestingly, so many women who are now online really pushing forward this death awareness, this sort of behind the scenes, pulling back the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, all this kind of buzz, and just showing people what's out there.
Right.
And so what initiated you into, well, actually, I'd really love to know what initiated you into getting into this business.
Yeah.
And then into social media.
Of course. So when I was 16, I needed a job. My mom worked at a funeral home. She was the aftercare coordinator. So she met with families kind of during and then worked with them afterwards. If they wanted someone to connect with, someone to help them with anything after, she had groups that would gather just like widow and widowers. And so I needed a job, and she's like, come work at the funeral home. I was like, all right. And never really envisioned that would be any end goal for me, but then tried it my junior year of college and I was hooked. So 20 years licensed later and 30 years in the business or something like that. And so I've been around it forever. It feels like I'm 44. So I've been around it for forever, it feels like. And it's just second nature or even first nature in a lot of ways to me. And then started the online about 6 years ago, I think, almost 7. Which is crazy at this point to think it's been that long, and has just organically grown in its diversity, and it's really viewer demanded. What they ask me, what they want me to dive into is a lot of what just straight my content is. So
yeah. And
what was your initial question? I have no idea. Sometimes I ramble and then I forget where I even started. I don't even know.
No, it was a double barrel question.
Okay.
You're fine. Yeah, it's actually myself and my friends at home, we joke about we fridge magnet things because especially when I'm living in New York here and I go home to Ireland, we're like, blah, 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 and we're just talking about so many things and we're like digressing all over the map. Yeah. So we're like, okay, let's come back to that. Of course, we don't come back to half of it. But anyway. So about 7 or 8 years ago, you got into social media. Is there one platform that you find is the most responsive to what you put out there?
Well, I started on YouTube. I was in kind of a lull. I didn't realize it was kind of a rut of the job. I think I was not working for the right people, and which happens a lot in this business. And my husband at the time said, well, why don't you post some questions and do some Facebook Lives about the business? Maybe people want to answer questions, see what happens, maybe do YouTube. Like he was being exposed to YouTube and some YouTube people through his work. And so it was just kind of like, hey, why don't you try that? And I did. I answered about 13, 14 questions for things that people had posted on my Facebook and started doing Facebook Lives, which is the most a nerve-wracking thing your first couple, because you're like watching that number of how many people are watching you, and it goes up and then it goes down, and you're like, well, why did they leave? What did I do wrong? Why don't they like me? What's wrong with me? And so you've got to like ignore that part. But then I started having people say, hey, I want to share that video with my mom, or I want to share that video with my grandma. And I was like, well, I don't want people just all going to my Facebook. So I did upload them all to YouTube, and people started finding them and watching. I remember I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I was like, who are these 1,000 crazy people wanting to watch me talk about stuff in my living room? And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then it kind of became its own brand. I became my own brand essentially through it. And so started the Instagram, started a Facebook, started more building a platform rather than just doing these random videos. And I thought I would be sharing for maybe students or something like that. And it became, my viewership is on YouTube really is strongest. It's like the 50 to 80-year-olds, and they watch the whole video. On YouTube, the average watch time on videos is maybe 3 minutes or so. Like you said, people are watching short. My average watch time is between 6 and 7 minutes. And when at least half of my videos are only 2 minutes long, that tells you people are watching the full duration, because the people that are going to YouTube, like the Applebee's, the YouTube to watch my videos are wanting to know what I'm saying. They're there for education and learning and context. And I have a really good, strong core group of people where, when I started getting some bullying by some other people's channels, viewers, they'd come to mine and start like bullying. I didn't even have to say anything, because my viewers would be like, leave her alone, get away from here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, I have people. Like, they're my people.
Wow.
So it was kind of fun to watch. It's like the whole thing's been a social experiment that I didn't know I needed, but it's amazing to watch it play out. And then diving into the other platforms to try to reach other age brackets in different ways and try and educate in different, it's like telling the same bit of information in 20 different ways to get somebody to hear it.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting how it all works in that essence.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, fair play. And a quick question. Quick question, but we'll see. How do you find the time to do it all?
I don't. I have no I don't sleep. I don't. Yeah, and then I bite off more. I'm like, well, why don't I do a podcast? Why don't I do this? Why don't I write a book? Why don't I? And my boyfriend's like, at some point you got to stop. Like, you have to just manage what you have rather than continually, because I have a hard time saying no, and that's my problem. So that's on my vision board this year, is like, have grace for myself and focus on what needs focus. And I think the last year I was saying yes to everything, because I was divorce, coming out of a divorce, and I'm the only person making income in a house and feeling the pressure of that. I think I was trying to find every avenue of any revenue, and I bit off a lot in different areas. And I'm a freelance funeral director, so that means I can work as little or as much essentially as I want to. And I work I work 3 days a week and every other weekend at least, and then have home office days. But then those home office days, if there's a sick kid or if there's doctor's appointments or whatever there may be, they're gone. And then I have a backup of, oh crap, how am I going to get any of this other done? And so I'll get up at 4 a.m. some days and try and hammer away at an hour of work before I have to do mom, or, whatever it may be. But yeah, I definitely, there's a lot of time I'm over my head a bit, but yet I still keep pushing through and manage. And, yeah, it's that thing. You look at other people and you're like, they're doing everything way better than me. But people are like, wow, look at how amazing you're doing. And I'm like, oh my Jiminy, do you even know how stressed out? I have a bleeding ulcer right now, I think. And it's always, you never realize what is behind I saw a meme recently, and it said, we are a society of very happy pictures with very sad people or
Yeah.
something like that, and yeah.
Or it's like the photo that I kind of feel like it for any entrepreneur or anybody who's kind of pushing themselves in a sense, or even just like a mom or a dad who's just like keeping their shit together and stuff, but it's that iceberg where
Yeah.
it's the huge iceberg underneath and all you see is this tiny tip of what we actually show to the public. And
Yes.
people don't get to see behind the scenes and the 4 a.m.s and the dragging your ass here, there and everywhere.
Yep.
And yeah, God, wow, fair play to you. That's amazing. And can I ask, what's been the wildest question you've ever gotten asked?
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's funny because people ask, like, what's the weirdest thing you've ever done? What's the craziest? What's the grossest? And I'm like, you know what? Everything's contextual in terms
Yeah,
of the person. So what's gross to me at this point, it's very little. It's, like fungus on toes, or, like weird things that people are like, really? What about, a head that's been exploded or that? And I'm like, it's that at this point that's not really that gross anymore. Like
yeah,
it's fascinating anatomically, that. But when you have I'm trying to think, broken bones still gross me out and things like that. And people just want to know what the wild is. They want the gore and the crazy,
yeah,
and they want that kind of response question. But my brain doesn't even know where to go because I don't see things in that vantage point. For
yeah,
the most part, I can maybe step back and think, well, I guess I could tell about that, or I could tell about that, but I don't even know if that's even crazy or gory or weird anymore
yeah.
for what, people think. So it's hard to connect my brain to a layperson who's not in the businesses
Well, and
brain.
that's it. I think is people will ask these questions, and it's more about curiosity, and it's
Yeah.
like asking a surgeon. I'm sure, like, what's the grossest thing you've seen? What's the
Right.
beating heart in your hand feel like, and stuff like that. But to them, it's probably like holding a cup of coffee to somebody else. Like
Right.
it's just relative. Everything is relative to what you do in life. Like I always joke that $5 to me might in my hand might be 500,000 in, well, Donald Trump's hands, say, for example,
Right.
just because that
Right.
just came in today. It's all relative to what you're used to. Like that, me gambling the five. I mean, okay, maybe not 5 to 5, but well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's all relative. So, but one of the things I'm fascinated with, and as I said, there's so many now influencers. I don't even know if
Yeah.
that's the term. Educators, I feel, is more appropriate. Who are on the TikToks, on the YouTubes, on the Instagrams, and all of these, and they're educating people. Do you ever worry from your own point of view and like watching all these others that misinformation is getting
Oh,
out there?
terrible misinformation. So that's the negative of, I think, especially what has been brought about with TikTok, because it's a quicker way to get bad information, where, YouTube takes a little more work maybe to post and stuff, and we didn't see it as much, where now we have people who are not even funeral directors, not even in mortuary school. They're in like pre-mortuary school. They've never even seen an embalming. They have no literal clue, but they throw mortician in their name title. And so people listen to them, and they're trying to give every sensationalistic post that they can. And they're giving really crappy, bad information. So then people come back to me like, oh my gosh, I saw this and blah, blah, blah. No, that's wrong. And then you have people that are trying to get that viewership, and they're showing bodies, they're showing things they should not be showing, they're doing videos while they're embalming, and it's like, this is all illegal. And then they cry when they get fired or when there's a lawsuit. There's a man that was driving a hearse, and he took a picture, and there was a casket in the back. That funeral home and that person were sued for just that, let alone videotaping while you're in embalming, let alone showing an actual dead body. And we're seeing it in like the medical examiner coroner type situation, first response, we're seeing it within a lot of those scenarios. And people are like, well, the families will never see it. No, 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 no. These are smart algorithms that are bringing things to people specifically. So if I had a loss and I live in, let's say, Baltimore, and there's a funeral director posting crap in Baltimore, it's coming back to me and I'm going to see it. And
Yeah.
so that's what some of these people are not understanding, and some of these younger people are not understanding, is this will kick you right back in the butt.
Yeah.
And there are people who are not so much in the business. And so there's a term, funeral tainers is a term that that has come out, that the older generation are calling some of the younger and other people that are putting out content, that they're claiming they don't do the work. They're putting themselves out and presenting that they do the work, and they're just there to funeral tain. And they have no idea what that person really does behind the scene. It's an interesting term that they're
Yeah.
using and throwing out. And I'm like, wait, are they claiming that I am? Like, what are they saying? But,
Yeah.
of course, we always think they're talking about us, but,
Yeah.
or, yourself. But there's a lot of really bad stuff that's happening, a lot of legal stuff that's happening
Yeah.
because of what's being put out.
Yeah, that's it's huge. And that gentleman who got sued, was it the hearse driver? Was it the family who sued him?
Yeah, the family saw the post and said, "That's my loved one, and you're posting about my loved one. That's their casket. That's the day of the funeral. This is what you were wearing." Like, they knew. They
Wow.
knew. And so, I mean, that's one thing I don't ever. There's never even caskets that have
Yeah.
anybody in them in my videos. I never have bodies. I make sure there's nothing written, no family names anywhere. I really try to make sure. And if I do video myself, even in the hearse, even if it's empty or at a cemetery, I don't ever post the day I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So to correlate it is going to be very hard that it ever connects. And I'm never go like, we're here at a graveside, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Like, I try not to ever be specific where it would connect to anything. And I think I counted one day in like 21 different communities or something I've worked in. So any stories I tell, it would be really hard to say that was my loved one, because I have worked in so many different communities with my freelancing and everything that, that's one nice thing about the work I do that is specific and unique to me, is I can tell stories that are kind of general, and you really can't go back to
Yeah.
who they are for the most part, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, I have I've team members that work for me and sort of will manage my memorials, posting my page and stuff, and they want. Initially, we had a few teething problems in that they wanted to post certain things that I was like, yes, I know, I've done PR and marketing, I know from a content point of view, absolutely that will go viral, or absolutely that makes great
Right.
content. It's just not what my brand represents, and it's not what I want to put forward,
Right.
which is a really difficult, and we're still working on some kinks. And that's the difficulty in what we do. It's like these are real life human beings we're talking about, and even even the ones who are dead, these were real life human beings, and their families still are. And so, exactly to your point, I mean, I don't post anything either without permission, or if it's, or maybe a year or two later, and when I do, it's flowers or something, or it's maybe a part of the which it could be anybody's, because we
Right.
obviously do similar things, but even at that, it's blur things out, or but there's
Something.
no semblance of censorship with the kids. I don't want to say the kids of these days, because I mean, I'm 40, and I still feel like I'm 25. But it is, as you said, it's kind of a lot of they've grown up in the social media age of there is no kind of privacy, there is no sort of censorship.
Right.
And and I've learned lessons along the way myself in that, I might have posted something, like I obviously work with other funeral homes and stuff like that, and I might have posted something that had the corner of something, or and that's fine, and I'll take it down, and apologies, and didn't realize and stuff like that. But so it is a learning curve, I think, for everyone. Like, even again, my social media team are kind of like, oh, we really need to do behind the scenes on such and such, and I'm like, I would love to do that, I think it would be amazing, but we can't. Like, that's
Yeah.
somebody else's precious day, and unlike a wedding when they want it recorded and usually broadcast to the public, this is not that, and that is so important for people to understand.
Yeah.
There's a video on my YouTube channel, actually, on the Glam Reaper YouTube channel, where it's actually a recording of a documentary. So, like, it's not my recording, but it was a documentary many, many years ago, showing, they sent somebody undercover into a UK funeral home. And it still to this day gets the most comments of people horrified at the way this funeral director treated the deceased. And it blows my mind that it still gets, people are horrified, which they've every right to be, and they should
Right.
be.
Right.
It's just wild. Have you, any, in your experience, have you had any sort of blips or doo-doos, or where you've kind of thought you've posted something and then thought afterwards, and you're probably, I'm getting the vibe you're similar to me, probably an overthinker and
Oh my
anxious,
God, yes.
should I have done that? Oh, that maybe, I don't know.
I'm trying to think if there's been any specific. I would have to look back through videos. I'm sure I've posted about naughty funeral directors and like talking about things that they've done wrong. I'm trying to think if there's been anything specific. Not for certain, honestly. There's been posts on like in funeral director groups where I've said stuff and then been attacked for saying it, because it's a golly, it's a contentious group of people.
Yeah.
For just trying to call out truth, or whatever, combating what they believe. But I don't know, I don't think there's really a video I've posted, or even a post that I've felt like I should
Censor and any.
No, I think I'm very careful with what I say, the context I put out. And there are people who are like, why would you ever share that if they think I'm oversharing? Like, I do share, I did a video about grief after my divorce, and this people like, well, how dare you claim that your grief is even near grief of losing someone? And I'm like, that's not really what I'm trying to share. What I'm sharing is that as a funeral director, we don't grieve the way other people do. Like, when you lose a loved one, I turn on a emotion blocker so that I can do work. So I don't get to grieve like you do when you have a death. And my divorce was where I couldn't block it. I couldn't turn on any response because I wasn't working. And so I went through these emotional swings and through what are identified as the stages of grief, and could identify them in a weird way like I never did before. That was one I got some feedback. Ooh, the video I posted, the one I've gotten the most negative back is handling like obese individuals. And oh dear God, I never thought that I would get so much negative. And people like, well, oh, you're charging by the pound. And oh, if someone is over a certain weight, then you're going to charge more just because of their weight. And I'm like, no. If I need more people, if I have to pay more people to come for work, then you have to charge for that. And if the merchandise costs more because there's more material, then you have to pay for that. If the crematory charges more because of their size, you have to pay for that. Like, you're not charging because they're of a certain weight. You're charging because things cost more because of certain items. And so I'm like, the embalming isn't going to cost more because you have to use double the material. that's not going to cost more. But if I have to bring 4 people to the home for the removal, yes, I have to
Yeah.
charge more. And so it was like, oh my goodness, it felt like defending myself, especially the first couple months that video came out, which has been years now at this point. But yes, that video, I don't think I regretted it, but I felt like I had to defend myself so much because they were not hearing what I was saying. And I've always thought maybe I could have phrased it different. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I
Well,
really don't redo videos and, try and phrase them differently. Like how I say them the first time is kind of how
how
they
you say it.
go. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Two things that what you said there. First of all, I completely disagree with everyone who was attacking you over your divorce. I did a TEDx talk on this entire topic
Mm.
that we as a society need to get the F over ourselves and stop judging other people's grief, because
Yes.
I don't know what it was like. I'm not married. I don't know what it's like to get married and have a divorce. I have a best friend who went through a divorce and was nearly suicidal at one point. And so I had to walk her through that and hope that she'd come out as best I could, because
Hmm.
suicide is such an internal, mental health is such a. I lost a dog and I felt like I lost a person when, so I
Yeah.
think I completely I would jump to your defense in that. And I would send those people that TED talk and I'd be like, listen, get off your whatever pedestal you think you have because maybe somebody died on you. I'm sad that somebody died on you. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. But equally, that doesn't take away from somebody else's grief.
Yes.
We're each on our own, and we're all doing our best, and that judgment drives me absolutely crackers. And then the second thing, it's so funny because I'm like relating to all of this. The second thing, the overweight thing, the obese thing. Interestingly, we put a post up about how an obese, how a crematorium went on fire after an obese person had been put in.
Yeah.
Now this was because a lot of what we do, and again, with social media, you're evolving, you're seeing what your audience like and don't like, and our channel isn't huge or anything, but it's very it's very soft and squishy is what I describe ours as. That was my when I was describing it to my team and sort of saying, okay, this is what we're going for. I understand you want to do all this, but no, we need to be soft and squishy and a hug. That's what we want to be people for people, is a hug. And they're like, okay. Anyway, I love my descriptors. But we put that post up, and what was interesting is one of my friends who worked quite closely with me at the time and still works with me, she messaged me and she said, Jen, I don't think this is who you are. I don't think this is who your brand is. I don't think this post is appropriate. And I had to sit back and like that, the anxiety ball. I was like, oh my God, have I done this terrible thing? That's not me. And that's not. And then I sat and I looked and I was like, no, but it's just sharing, it's an article that's online, it's news, and it's just sharing it. And, listen, I battle with weight like most women, I think, whether it's
Yeah.
underweight or
For sure.
overweight or whatever it is, we just all battle with it. Men too, I'm sure. I just don't know what it's like to be a man. But my friend, I I said to her, I wrote back and I said, you know, this isn't attacking obese people. This isn't, and what was interesting though is she took some time. She came back and she said, you know what? I'm sorry. She said, I took that as a personal attack because she's dealing with things. And that's the thing about social media. And it's the same with text messages and any sort of thing that you read. You're taking it in your moment, whatever mood you're in. Like I'm on a freaking detox at the moment. So like most things are met with like, not really. Like, I'm missing my coffee and my glass of wine or whatever. But like whatever you're dealing with in that moment, whether it's grief, happiness, procrastination, fear, shame, whatever you're dealing with in that moment, if you read something online or somebody texts you something, you're receiving it with that energy. It doesn't mean the person sent it to you in that energy. It
Right.
just means you're receiving it that way. And that's what I feel like. Okay, mine was on a much teeny tinier scale, but what you're telling me about your post, I'm kind of like, that's the majority of those people, I guarantee you, who attacked you took it as a personal attack on themselves.
Right.
They are probably battling with weight. Maybe even half of them aren't overweight, but they're battling with it and they saw it as a personal attack. Like, why should I have to pay more? Why did I? And, your answer is logical. It's scientific. If it costs more, unfortunately, I'm really sorry, I have to charge more. Like, that's
Yeah.
like me saying, when I do a catered reception, and people are like, okay, well, we're going to have 100 people. And then they changed to 150. I mean, if the price has to go, we
Right.
have to have more food, we have to have more drink, more staff. Like, it's
It's
logic.
just logical. It's just a numbers thing, and unfortunately, like you said though, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, this person is probably 400 pounds sitting in their house watching
Hmm.
this video and feeling like their family is going to be charged more when they die. And
Yeah.
I understand that. I get that
Yeah.
visceral reaction to it, and it's easy for the keyboard warriors to just throw anything they want at me. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, yep, I get it. Thank you. Thank you for your opinion is what, like, I got to the point because they don't want to hear my answer. My answer will not change how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing I think to learn when you're on social media, especially I think YouTube, because YouTube's so anonymous, and you can change your name every day, you can change your handle every day, you can change everything, which you can do on other platforms, but there's a lot of photos and stuff there. So I think
Hmm.
YouTube is just so anonymous that it's frightening because you have no idea who you're interacting with, where they are, what's going on. And people, I think, are lonely, and people want to engage you, and they will
Hmm.
do it through negative content because that is the best way to engage somebody, is to get them to online battle. And for a while I would lose time, I would lose energy, I would lose sleep in the beginning, and I finally got to the point, I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, this is not worth my time and energy. This person obviously just is trying to stir turds to get me to engage with them, and I'm sorry that is their sad life, but I need to step away. And finally realized how to deal with it, and did it, and became healthier in that, that kind of response and stuff. But it did take a while to get there because there's a lot of sad people, and that's how the only way they can interact with another human is through that.
Yeah. It is. It really is. It's very sad, and we're all completely different, and everyone deals with things differently, and that's
Yeah.
social media opens that beast up for communication, which brings in both the good, the bad, the ugly. So Carrie, just before I guess we let you go,
Yeah.
because it's been wonderful to have you on, and we
Thank you.
might have you on again, if you're up for it.
Yes.
Is what would be, if you've got some maybe budding funeral directors out there, or these ones that are pre-mortician school, and maybe they're, we've talked a little bit about they can take some advice from you.
Yeah.
What would be your kind of your one piece of advice, or even if it's somebody who's had a funeral home for years and years and years, and maybe they're considering getting in touch with social media and sort of doing a TikTok or doing the YouTube or whatever.
Um, education and being honest has to be a kind of a core goal. Entertainment, when we're in this business, cannot be your goal. It's not a business based on entertainment. We're not here to entertain. We're here to care for people. And so if you educate to empower and allow people to get to know you, give a human side to us as funeral directors, you can do it with a little bit of humor and such, because that is going to engage them, but it can't just be at the expense of the families that are being served and everything. And I think especially for the younger generation to step back and think, okay, if my family member was here, or I guess for anybody, if my family member was here and that was my loved one, and you came across a TikTok where someone's dancing in front of grandma's casket or using grandma as a background while she's being embalmed or anything, how would you feel about that? Would you think that's awesome? Would you feel offended? Would you feel sad? Would you feel manipulated? And also, there's a lot of contracts that now have privacy in them, or, cell phone. And so as an employee of a funeral home, also
Mhm.
remember, if you're doing TikToks on company time, your employer can come to you and tell you that you owe them anything you have made on those videos because you were on the clock while making them. And as an employee, if you are creating um, documents for the funeral home while you're working for them, they own those. If you're creating content for your YouTube, for your Instagram, for your whatever, and posting it thinking you're creating entertainment and things, and you start making money on it, your employer can say, guess what? You are on the clock making those. So that is our content, that is our income,
Yeah.
and can come to you on these different angles. Of course, they won't agree with that, but that's okay, good. Then I will take back what I paid you for that time while you were making those on the clock.
Yeah.
So it's either you're on the clock or you're not on the clock. You're being paid, you're not being paid. And remembering that it's not just cut and dry when it comes to those things.
Mm.
Because if you're sitting and you're TikToking or you're Facebooking or you're Instagramming, that's time that you should be working
Yeah.
and should be doing those other things. So that is a huge part of the problem now, is the focus being divided, the focus being away from the family and how can I use this moment to create content. So I always think I don't create enough content while I'm like at work and while I'm doing things because I'm working. So
Yeah.
a lot of my videos, if I'm at work, is usually like 7 in the morning when I first get there or whatever, because I'll be like, oh, that would have made for a good whatever. And then I'm like, well, that moment was over because I was actually working. Like I can't push around a casket with one hand, and I can't do things with
Yeah.
one hand if I'm trying to record. And me and another employee trying to record me doing something is not always the best use of time. I do it once in a
Yeah.
great while, but not often because I'm working,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So focus, know you're focused, focus of where you need to be focusing, and understand your role as an employee of a company and where you should be with it.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Well, everyone who is interested, I guess, should follow you, and we'll leave all the links to all your different social media handles,
Perfect.
all of the YouTubes and all of the Instagrams and the TikToks. And thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for being on the show, should I say?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And that was our episode with Kari the Mortician. So definitely do check her out on social media. All the handles are listed below. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Ciao for now.